Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. This is our 500th episode, and we wanted to start by taking a moment to thank everyone who has participated in our conversation series over the years. We also want to thank you, our listeners, for supporting our show and our members' work since we started this podcast in 2015. Whether you've joined us for the occasional conversation or this is also your 500th time tuning in, we appreciate you. To celebrate, we want to highlight some of our most notable discussions over our 9 years on the air. We'll be revisiting the futuristic dunes of Arrakis, the streets of 1970s Mexico City, the trenches of WW1-era Europe, and more, as filmmakers give insight into their process of building incredible cinematic experiences. Our first clip takes us to a modern-day Los Angeles laundromat where the struggling owner discovers that only she can save the multiverse. Listen on as DGA award-winning directors Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert speak about filming Everything Everywhere All at Once with director Destin Daniel Cretton.
But I do want to talk about working with actors, getting performances. It's not only Michelle, Stephanie, Key. I mean, everybody killed it in this movie. So, what did you find was your role as directors in shepherding that? I'm like a computer nerd. I'm terrible with humans. Like directing I did not think I was going to become a director. He's like the theater guy. And so I owe so much to the Sundance Labs, the Sundance Institute, for taking us in early on with So Sorry Man. And specifically during the Directors Lab, Joan Darling, I don't know if any of you have worked with her before. She's this incredible actress, acting coach, director, writer. She's just this effervescent human being.
But they bring her specifically to be the acting coach. So like they make everyone who's there for the Directors Labs act. And she's like, you're going to do scenes together. But she has so many little truisms that have stuck in her head forever.
The one that like I always think of, and I know every director has their own process and they have their own way of creating a vibe on set, which is so important. But she says, you are a party host and this is your party. And your only goal is to make sure everyone feels comfortable so that they can have the most fun and be the most themselves. You got to make sure the right people are talking to each other. If you see someone alone, you bring them into the fold, make sure everyone's fed, make sure everyone has their dietary restrictions, dealt with. But you are trying to basically just bring all these humans together and just like organically let them blossom into the best versions of themselves. And that has always stuck with us. And our vibe is, we kind of like tweaked it and because we met at a summer camp. And so we're summer camp counselors and this is our summer camp and we're going to have a lot of fun. So
sometimes we're pretty bossy, but like it's just because there's an
like
activity
that
we're doing today that it's gonna be a fun activity. We're just gonna have to be really specific, get in line,
Especially with a movie like this, which is so ambitious and you ask so much of everyone. At the end of every single day, people are just fully used and exhausted. And you just got to make it fun. You just got to give them something that like just lights them up. And so every morning we do a warm-up exercise like summer camp, and everyone in the crew, doesn't matter who you are, we come together and we quickly ran out of exercises. But then what was really fun was then the crew members would just volunteer and be like, I want to do an exercise. And they would lead the whole crew. And Jamie Lee Curtis.
What's an example of an exercise?
We have a bunch of like classic summer camp ones. Like sometimes it's like yoga or like calisthenics, but like one morning we did like slow motion fighting, which is something I did in theater camp, where like everyone's in a war with each other and you're not allowed to actually hit each other, but it's just one big slow-mo fight. And like the goal is to do it convincingly, not to win the fight. Yeah. And so it's just like 50 people picking up chairs and pretending like they were gonna beat each other up.
Like Jamie Lee Curtis did like a jazzercise aerobics class in the morning. So it was,
and then
like that.
One day was an emotional day, and it was the first time we've ever done this, where like Dan did like a guided meditation. It's like even like the grips, had to like sit in a chair and like do a guided meditation with us. And Dan walked everyone through like think about the thing you love most in the world. Now that's a glowing orb, and now it's growing until it absorbs the people around you. And it was so great.
Gosh, I want to be on this set.
But so anyways, that's a long-winded way of saying just like
we did very little. Like what you see on the screen is just like so much of their effort and so much of them, of our actors just being given a space to fully be themselves. And I'm so proud of what they did, because each one of them in some way surprises the audience or takes what you think of them and just totally explodes it. And that's like, as a director, like I think that's like one of the funnest things you can do, right? Is to like watch Michelle Yeoh just like stretch her being and her ability in every direction and just kill it every single time. So thank you for a compliment wrapped up in a question, but I really is just about giving them the space to grow. And we also just had the right people for the job.
They made us look good. Yeah.
I mean, I do want you to know, and maybe every director in the room to know, that creating the right space and vibe and for your actors is not nothing. I really think that it's everything. I think, and all your actors told me that, so I'm glad that you recognize it. On to the next bit of my questions.
I love how prepared you are. It means so much.
These are, you guys can feel free to pass on some of these things, because
stump us. Try to stump us.
Well, I do know that when I watched this movie twice, tonight was my second time, it is so full of magic tricks, and you can decide whether you're going to reveal some of these tricks to us or not. But for instance, if you look at that first montage when Michelle is, I think it was the first one, when you see her grow up really fast, and you were planning out these montages, I still don't know like how you shot them, because anytime I see a montage, I get really scared, because I know how slow the train moves, and that every department head typically sees that one thing and sees like a week worth of work in prep to like figure out all the things in that one line. But how did you guys just take that first one?
Yeah.
Was that all shot in a day, or was it sprinkled throughout, squeezed in?
It was sprinkled, and three things come to mind. One, we did a bunch of music videos with the same crew, and so like a lot of our department heads are used to the fact that like we're going to prioritize certain things, and certain things we're just going to like do it the janky way, you know? But also when we wrote it, like the first early drafts were more unproducible. and then we were like, okay, if we're gonna go to a alleyway that's in Hong Kong, how many vignettes can we get there? And then we like rewrote to be like, okay, while we're there, without really moving the crew, we'll get her running as a kid and poking her eyes out. We'll get Waymond and Evelyn leaving, then her deciding not to leave, then her in the taxi, and then her not in the taxi. And like that was all within like about 20 feet of each other. So we were able to just be like, oh, we're going to use this in 6 different places, but we're going to shoot it in like an hour and a half. And then the other thing, I forgot.
But that was a wonderful breakdown for a magic trick.
Yeah.
That was very helpful for my brain.
That was directors Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert speaking about their film Everything Everywhere All at Once with moderator Destin Daniel Cretton. Our next clip comes from a film set during the waning years of Hollywood's golden age and features director Quentin Tarantino in conversation with fellow director Paul Thomas Anderson. Tarantino's DGA Award-nominated film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, follows a fading television actor, his stunt double, and his neighbor, Sharon Tate, in the months leading up to one fateful night in August 1969.
Okay, so go back now. Let's go into the Spawn Ranch sequence, which is so unbelievably done. It's so long, and I'm not saying long in a bad way. I'm saying it continues on, and it keeps pulling the string, and it takes you places that you do not expect. I mean, certainly in Bruce Dern as George Spawn's reaction and that dialogue between them. That is just like two great actors.
It's really great to watch those guys together.
I mean, damn, they're both so great in that. Can you kind of play through a little bit of how you map that sequence out? Because it doesn't seem like you could have just gotten there for that one and put the pieces together. The sunlight is always low. It feels
you don't mean writing, you mean directing.
I mean directing.
Yeah.
Which, right, and your scripts usually are very written out very specifically, but that one seems, I mean, we're at the DJ, well, the fake DJ.
Yeah, no,
tonight,
that makes it,
but,
that makes it, no, what you're saying makes sense. I mean,
even the dogs are fucking directed. I mean, talk about that. I mean,
well, I mean, it was one of those, well, actually, that might be a good way to start it off, because the thing is, there's this really great story about Francis Ford Coppola doing all the whole Robert Duvall sequences in Apocalypse Now. And, you know, they're using the helicopters to the Filipino airport, and he's paying for everything himself, and this just all the incredible pressures of trying to do this. It's almost unimaginable. But him and Victoria Storaro come up with realize, much to his horrible chagrin, because he needs to get footage shot, much to his horrible chagrin, that if the helicopters aren't in the background, it just doesn't work. It's just dead. You can't have just the helicopters a little bit. After you've established the helicopters have to be flying in the air behind every single solitary shot. Okay, no, I didn't quite have as much of a problem as Francis Ford Coppola did, but I did tell the people, I go, look, if there's any shot in Spawn Ranch, I need to have a dog in the background. I mean, there can never be a shot that I don't see a dog doing something, because that was kind of what it was like. They had a lot of dogs there, you know, and that means the place is alive.
Yeah.
That means it's living. That means it's crawling. That means it's got fleas. You know, and that means it's scrounging. And it's just there's a movement. There's always movement going on. The place is alive, and there's always some living thing running from one pile of trash to another.
Right.
In the background, just keep it going. The thing about directing that, well, it was one of those like hard sequences where like you were like, okay, well, this is kind of one of the cornerstones of the movie. And in this movie, more than most, because part of the thing is kind of doing a non-story movie for most of it. And the closest thing to a story is when he goes to Spawn Ranch. There is that aspect when you're watching the movie, oh, we've been like heading here the entire time. I didn't realize it until now. Here we are. And actually, maybe the story, maybe the movie had a story, and it's about getting him here. And so, it worked. I had a terrific group of actors, and I had it worked really good on the page. So now it's mine to fuck up, and it's almost so big. How do you even start that? Yeah. And so we just shot it in. I gave myself 2 weeks. I gave myself 2 weeks to shoot there completely uninterrupted, and then a little bit of leeway if I needed, maybe even as much up to 4 days if I had to. Right. All right. And I figured that would be enough. I didn't think if that was too much, but I figured that would be enough. And I tried not to use those 4 days. But the point being, though, was to not really work out anything. Mm-hmm. The point was I had maybe one of the best sets I've ever had in my life. I mean, I thought Barbara Ling and Nancy Hyatt did just a fantastic job with Spawn Ranch, and it looked so amazing. I couldn't believe it.
The whole movie. I mean, the whole fucking movie.
But that place just seemed like game. It was eerie, creepy about how great it was, and then the actors were fantastic. And I've never had a group of actors. I didn't really work with young people that much. I never worked with a group of young actors where I didn't almost have all that body language that they had. I didn't have to teach them fucking shit. You know, they just knew all that Spawn Ranch. They knew all that Manson stuff, that family stuff. They all worked all that stuff out together, and they just boom, it was just right there. And so then it was literally we just put the camera on the crane and just keep inventing the shots and doing it in order, so in case something cool happens or we do something neat or whatever, now we can continue on with it.
Right.
And so everything will build to everything else.
Right.
And so it was just kind of like just steady as she goes.
Right.
Just boom, boom, boom. As I'm doing it, if I'm going to get an idea for something like maybe a section that's like three days from now. Well, now because I'm little by little, I'm just working to get to the house. That's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to get across this whole giant lot and get Brad in the house. All right. Now, as I'm heading towards the house and as I'm heading there, I'm thinking about stuff coming up. And now any equipment I might need for a special shot or anything I need to get this big fucking rusty pickup truck out of the way. So we need to do something else, or I need the crane pointed that way and I need to point it that way all day. So I got to do, but all those things I would need to do that either new ideas are coming to me or things I want to manipulate. Because I'm working that way, I get you. Then we're in the house, and then everything is about in the house. We didn't shoot that on a stage; that was there,
that house.
And then now I got to get him out of the house and back to the car, and so everything was just about just following, just literally narratively and cinematically moving Brad through there.
Right.
This is probably why it was so long, actually, if you think about it, because it just held.
Yeah.
It just held.
Yeah.
Like the longer it was, the scarier it seemed.
Right.
But I kind of believe that about suspense. I think, that was the trick I learned on Inglourious Bastards with the basement scene. I was like, wow, this is crazy long, but it seems like it's working, and then if it is working, well, then the longer it is, the more suspenseful it will be.
Well, I think anybody that's in here watching this film that's been trained by seeing something that you've done before would expect that, if they were to try to get ahead of you, would expect that to end with Dakota Fanning pulling a gun, some kind of gunfire, perhaps, if you sort of try to predict it. And what's so beautiful about it is that it ends up with these two guys desperately trying to reconnect on that bed. Yeah. And, of course, it does take a turn with the fella who gets the kicked out of him in 100.
Yeah, but even like I think the Manson family's not even presented they're pretty creepy, but a lot of their creepiness is what we're bringing to the party. I mean, they actually show that they kind of take care of George. Everything they say is exactly the truth. He is taking a nap. He's absolutely fine. All right. What's your fucking problem? What do you care? Get out of here. I actually had a scene where they were talking and he goes, so, because he makes some crack about her having sex with him, and she goes, "What do you care if I have sex with him? Were you his friend?"
That's good.
He goes, "Yeah, you have a point. I'll get out of
here." That was director Quentin Tarantino speaking about his film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with moderator Paul Thomas Anderson. Our next film, Lady Bird, is directed by Greta Gerwig and follows a high school senior's turbulent relationship with her loving and strong-willed mother. Spike Jonze moderates a conversation with Gerwig about her DGA Award-nominated feature.
What about the movie? It just feels so intimate, and I assume people ask you a lot of autobiographical questions, like which part's real, and is that how's that feel?
Well,
Do you want to kill them?
No. I mean, I understand. I mean, there are things that are from my life in terms of like being from Sacramento, and I went to a Catholic girls' school. I was not like Lady Bird in my person. I didn't make anyone call me by a different name. I never dyed my hair bright red. I was a very like rule following kind of a kid. I was a people pleaser, and I think writing it was a way to explore something that wasn't accessible to me as a person. And the characters are, Marion, played by Laurie Metcalf, it's not like my mom. And the fights aren't the same, but the heart of that rich, complicated relationship is close to my heart and close to what that feels like. It rhymes with the truth more than it is the truth, if that makes sense. But I think particularly showing a city. At that moment, and kind of it was a way for me to talk about now without setting a film now of this moment after this national trauma of 9/11, and we were in this war in Afghanistan, we're getting into the war in Iraq. There's this erosion of the middle class occurring. And that was something that I saw growing up, and I still see now, of this sort of feeling that the bottom's falling out and everybody's, within the context of their own lives and their own families. It's, this idea of like, I want to give my child a better life than I had seems to be less accessible and less accessible. And that's something I kind of wanted to deal with, and that I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the. It was interesting that when I first saw it, the sort of financial anxiety of the family was so, so sort of constant and intense. But then when it really, for me, when it hit was when the boy that she was dating came over and said, "Oh, there actually were tracks. I actually had to come over. I did cross the tracks." And just somehow sort of metabolized all that tension and made it so I think the reaction of the mom to that is really strong. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's also, the character of Lady Bird too, and she keeps looking up at other people and things that she wants, like the kids that she sees with the fancy cars and the big houses, and it makes it incapable in some ways of seeing what she does have, and that she is the object of envy for someone else. And I always think, her friend Julie probably looks at Lady Bird and says, but you live in that sweet house and your family's all together. And that because you're always kind of looking up, you can't see what's right there. But I don't have an answer for any of it. I just wanted to show it sort of honestly. And I don't know. It's just interesting when you talk to people afterwards, and so many parents talking about taking their kids to school, and teenagers talking about their lives. But so many people have said to me, "Oh, I didn't invite people over because I was worried that I was the kid with the weird house or the weird family." But then you realize everybody feels that way. It doesn't. You could be the kid in the perfect house, and you're like, "I don't want people to come over and see what's really going on." But that feeling of somebody else has it better or knows more is pretty universal, I think.
Yeah, I think that's. It's interesting because I came last week with Rowan, who's a teenager, and she was I think it just she really related to it, and I could relate to it too. From my, she's living, and I could relate to it thinking about it. But I think it's so subtle. It's one of the more subtle and sort of masterful films about being a teenager, because it's all in the details, and it's all in the performances too, between all of them, and all the parts, and her and her friend. And I think that all the subtleties and just the feelings, I love the moment where she goes back to Julie's house, and Julie's obviously upset about something, and we never know what it is. And I think that just the feeling of that, it's you don't know everything, but you feel everything. And I feel like that's very true to being a teenager.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm always interested in I'm interested in things that the audience knows that the characters don't know. There's all these moments where you're alone with, and really, honestly, the actors are so great, so they give you so much with just a few lines. They have this whole sense of life that they bring to it, like Stephen McKinley Henderson, who plays the priest Father Leviatch, and Lois Smith, who plays Sister Sarah Joan, and just really, truly great actors. And but I like those moments where the audience gets to spend a second with, Julie touching her name on the cast list, and Lady Bird doesn't see that. And Lady Bird never knows of Julie's crush with the teacher, and, the way Marion is tender with her coworker, or Larry in the job interview, these places you can't go with other people. And so that the audience has that, but our heroine does not have it. And then the things that even the audience can't know, but they feel what is Julie upset about? I don't know. And you feel that it's just, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's when you live in a community, you feel like you know people so well, and then yet there's so much you can never know.
And and I also liked how, you know, it's like the similarity, how you were sort of painting the daughter and mother and sort of the similarities between them, and he, you know, the dad says it at one point, but the scenes that really got me, especially seeing it this time, putting them back to back, is how the really touching scene with her ex-boyfriend outside of the coffee shop, cut right next to then the mom consoling the priest, and that they have such empathy. They're such empathetic people, but they can't access that together.
No, I know. I wanted the first shot that they're so sweet and lying in the bed together, and that's such a moment of calm because they're unconscious. and then it's sort of like the minute we're awake, the you know, it starts twisting. No, yeah, if Lady Bird has an ability to be compassionate, she gets it from her mother. And even though they keep missing each other, they're just so connected.
That was director Greta Gerwig speaking about her film Lady Bird with moderator Spike Jones. Our next film takes us to a middle-class Mexico City neighborhood in the early 1970s, as director Alfonso Cuarón recalls his upbringing and the women who raised him during a time of domestic strife and political turmoil. Cuarón discusses his DJ award-winning film, Roma, with fellow director Alejandro Iñárritu.
For me, for example, the way you have been always very obsessed, and we start talking about this, about the anti-narrative film, like how the film can be liberated from narrative in the sense that is the plot and all those structures that are now very, you know, they have to have it, first act, second act, third act, the twist, the page 190, and all that that is kind of the book to make cookie cutter things, and how to liberate everybody from that in order to arrive to film with that, but it's not easy. And I think what I was thinking is you were not worried about that, and I think you liberate yourself from that. You didn't have any net of the structure, and that's why you didn't consult anybody to say if it's right or not. There is no right or wrong in memory. It is what it is. But to jump in it and to make a film like this is another thing. But there's...
And at the end up with 3 acts and the whole...
No, what I want to say is I cannot find a better emotional narrative in a film in the last 20 years that I have seen. So there's a flowing that is an emotional river that is going from a creek to a river and to the ocean in the 400 blows homage that I think you did there. And I mean, let's put it this way. Start with a drop, right? In that shot there. And it start with this water. And then it's a creek, and then it's always the rain in Mexico with then the ice, and then the river, and then the ocean, and then you take her to the sky. So I mean, but it's emotionally with a congruence and a narrative and a rhythm that is pure melody. There is no plots and rhythms no, it's melody like a symphony. So in a way, you did not liberate from narrative. You discover your internal narrative.
No, I think narrative is fantastic. I just think that there's an artificiality narrative that is. We have talked about that a lot, about how sometimes films are hostages of that artificiality.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and how to liberate. And narrative is fantastic. It's one of the greatest tools of cinema. You know, the problem is when cinema becomes just a media to illustrate a narrative. Mm-hmm. You know, or it's a media in which narrative is certain kind of, there's a sense of artificiality that is a safety net. It's one of the safety nets I was telling you before, you know, and yeah, it was about trying to, but you know, we talked what I was doing, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly. No, it's true. But that's the beautiful thing about it. And what I love, for example, how I love that car, that Galaxy car is so oppressive. It's like a monster. So it's the father arriving and smoking, and the whole thing is a monster. And then the dog shit there is starting to get all the house start full, the shit spread all around, and the car going in, and then she take the car and destroy that, all that section, and then the kid premonition with her, all that, the first development of that through the car, you just jump into that to shoot one of the most beautiful scenes of 4 or 5 minutes of a guy going into a garage. And it's terrifying. How you do that?
Welcome to my life. That was my life.
You were in the galaxies, and that's why you did then.
The funny thing is that when Guillermo said that, says, "Oh my God, that was like my house."
Yeah. I have a house. We were, by the way, neighbors. He was in La Roma, and I was in Narvarte. So I was in Uxmal, so we were kind of neighbors. We never crossed at that time. You were the guy of the galaxy, right?
No, I was the guy. No, but this is the thing. I mean, it's very clear because that galaxy, we had that galaxy, but it's very clear that it's a car too big for the garage, with all the social implication of that.
Exactly.
You know, there's a certain pretentiousness. Same time is that is charged not by 8 cylinders, but the 8 testosterones that are like going on there, you know, and that he has even the crown of the patriarch, you know. And it's the present. You don't see the father until the end of that. And also, meanwhile, it's kind of like a penetration. Is going through this, you know, invading the whole corridor like that, you know, and the same, and he's so careful about the car, but then he's completely aloof with the family.
Yeah, no, it's. I think the portrayal of men in this film is so real and so tough because it's just men that are not committed, men that abandon, men that lie, that are brutal. And that's something culturally very, very, very powerful and very strong. The social class of her. I would like to talk about the discovery that you made with Cleo, because I think she deserves an applause. It's amazing.
Cleo is amazing.
Every frame, I think she sustained every. So you can put the camera in silence, and just when she's hearing the doctor or. She's just a gravitas that is, and she has never performed. How do you get there, her? Because I think is the film. I think she's the heart of the whole thing.
Without her, this wouldn't work. And I was just so lucky when I met her because I have been casting for months and months and months and different states in Mexico, having armies of casting crews going through all villages, small villages, and. When I saw her for the first time, the thing is, part of the process is that the rules that we were going to shoot in the places where the actions took place more than 40 years ago, as much as possible. Some were completely destroyed or non-existent. And we were going to cast people that they look alike as much as possible to the real people, but also that they feel alike. And that was a challenge because you will meet people that they would kind of look like, but they wouldn't feel like. And when I saw her for the first time in a video, I said, "Wow, this is really. I mean, this is Cleo." And when I met her, it was just one hand I was relieved. I said, "Okay, I have Cleo," and I was like a few weeks before I started shooting, and then terrified that she would say no. And actually, she was not really interested. She had just finished studying as an educator for the villages around, and she didn't know who I was, and so she was not impressed at the least, and I think what helped a lot is that I said, okay, there's a character who's just your coworker and your best friend. Who's your best friend? And says, it's Nancy. Can we meet Nancy? And then Nancy came, and it was fantastic when I met Nancy. And said, well, I would love you to do it. And she gave me the most honest answer. Look, I just finished studying, and the applications for the jobs are not going to come because it's a government kind of situation, this whole thing. The applications are not going to come for our generation for the next 8 months. I have nothing better to do.
Just call my agent. It's both of them because they exude bondad, like beauty or kindness, right? There's a kindness, there's a truthness in her relation with the kids, with herself.
And but that was her, and it was her, but also understanding the character. She met with Libu, and she talks about how she was a bit hesitant and a bit scared, but when she met her, she said, if she has put so much heart to this family, I'm going to put the same heart for this film.
That was director Alfonso Cuarón speaking about his film Roma with moderator Alejandro Iñárritu. Up next is director Denis Villeneuve, who discusses filming the first part of his silver screen adaptation of Frank Herbert's seminal science fiction novel, Dune, with director Christopher Nolan. The DGA Award-nominated film follows the gifted son of a noble family who is entrusted with the protection of the most vital and valuable asset in the universe.
And where did you shoot? What were your choices in terms of where you would build, where you would find locations? How did you go about that process?
Well, we choose the best because they had the necessary the stage space that we had what needed. I had shot Blade Runner there. They have fantastic stages, big enough for the sets that we were designing. And then we shot in Jordan and in Abu Dhabi, because in Jordan you have like all the rocky formation that I was looking for, but not the sea of sand. And that's the thing that I said to the studio, that it was not a negotiation. I didn't want to shoot the desert on a back lot or say I didn't want to use green screens. I wanted to go in the real environment, to be as close as possible to nature as Frank Herbert did when he wrote the book. Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the most spectacular locations that you've used in the film is Wadi Rum in Jordan, which some of you may know from Lawrence of Arabia. And a lot of films have shot in Wadi Rum since Lawrence. But for my money, this is the first time I've seen it used in as expressive a way. The sense of place, I think, is extraordinary. And how was it shooting in Wadi Rum? Because the thing about Wadi Rum is it's this vast valley. I mean, just on a scale, I just can't think of anything else in the world on that scale. So how were you getting to where you were shooting? Were you camping out there? Were you staying in a nearby town?
There's a town called Aqaba that is part of the Lawrence of Arabia story.
Aqaba by land.
Yeah. and Frank Herbert, when he wrote Dune, was inspired by T. Lawrence, Seven Pillars of Wisdom. And then it was like it was something natural to go back, because there's so many links between the Lawrence of Arabia and Dune. This idea of a man that decided to, because he falls in love with a new culture, and he feels home with this new culture, and wants to help the culture, and goes to war with the culture, and then realize that he himself is an instrument of colonialism. So it's very close to. So it was like, it made sense to go to Wadi Rum. Now, it was my third time that I was shooting in Jordan. I had been there first alone with a video camera, making a documentary about Petra when I was a film student. I came back 10 years later with a small film crew to shoot a feature film there. And I remember scouting all around Jordan, saying to myself, if ever I do a movie like Dune, that's where I come back, because the rock formation there are so poetic, so powerful, so unique. Then it became, as you rightly said, more exploited in movies, but it just feels so close to the description of the book. Mm-hmm. There's a place, the final scene where Paul and Jessica meets finally the Fremen. It's exactly the description. It's like that kind of horseshoe dead end in the rocks. It was like very mesmerizing for me to find those locations that felt so close to the spirit of the book.
Yeah, that's fabulous. What were your choices in terms of what to build? Because obviously there's a huge visual effects component. There's all kinds of enhancements to the environment. I think beautifully blended. What's your process of deciding what to build? And what were the biggest sets that you built?
The biggest one was probably there's two. There's like the palace, the residency. We built like a massive corridor, so maybe 30 feet high, and it was like we took the old stage that I remember seeing the mouth of the producer when they saw the size of the sets. But we did also the thing is that I did one compromise because of budget. I wanted to shoot the landing on the Atreides landing. I wanted to shoot that in the desert in Jordan, but it was too expensive. So we built a tarmac in Hungary, like the size of 2 football fields, and surrounded by sunscreens around. And that was probably the biggest. It sounds silly to say, but that tarmac was huge. I mean, that was like that to create a scale, to have the distance with the extra, to have the proper scope.
How did you get the light? The sense of heat and sun there is amazing in that scene.
That's the thing. We were very lucky with climate in Jordan. We had those beautiful white skies, blow-up skies with a lot of wind, strong winds, and little sandstorm. I was like, the gods of cinema were with us, and I was so happy. And we were able to shoot, come back on schedule. We were heroes. Then we got punished because we landed in Hungary, and then it started to rain nonstop. So it was like something you cannot have on Arrakis. So yes, that was like the plan didn't work that well, frankly. But the good thing is that we shot some interiors in Budapest. We went to Jordan for several weeks. When we came back, the crew knew exactly the amount of sand required on costume and on the dust. And so everybody came back with that experience of the desert. So it allowed us to recreate with the special effects, the dust and waiting for the right skies. Yeah.
Mm. So even the light, as the doors open and that bright line, is that just overexposing the
yes.
It's phenomenal.
And a lot of dust. I mean, a lot of dust and a lot of proplers. There's a lot of actors that didn't like dust at that moment. A lot of them.
Yeah.
That was director Denis Villeneuve speaking about his film, Dune, with moderator Christopher Nolan. Our next film features director Spike Lee's DJ Award-nominated BlacKkKlansman, which tells the incredible true story of the first Black detective in the Colorado Springs Police Department and his dangerous undercover mission to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. Lee speaks about filming BlacKkKlansman with fellow director John Singleton.
I was going to ask you a question. I'm only asking you this because we have an assembled audience here, and I'm channeling questions that people would want to ask you and that probably wouldn't want to ask you. But it's not me; it's everyone else. Why? Because hey, we're real. But why do you have so much racism in most of your movies? Why do you deal with these different subjects? What draws you to them? I mean,
well, I don't think it's most, because if you go to IMDb.
Okay, I'm not saying.
No,
most.
let me finish.
I'm asking the question like I ain't me.
I'm not looking at you.
Why you do all the?
I know it's not coming from you.
Okay.
So let me emphasize that.
I mean, it's like almost like racism in movies is Spike Lee. Like,
well, here's the thing, though. People like to put labels on you. Last Wednesday night was the 32nd anniversary. She's Gotta Have It. So I'm in my 4th decade, and not every film, the main story is about racism, but people try to put you in a, lump you together. So they say, do the right thing, Malcolm X, and now this will join that. But I've told many, many different stories. And so but I don't run away from the history of this country. And on top of that, the racism that we have in this country has been perpetuated by 50 plus years of television, 100 plus years of cinema. It is not a coincidence that Birth of a Nation and Gone with the Wind are in this film. They got Barnes and Noble here in LA. If we go to Barnes and Noble now as a group, they have a DVD section, and on the wall they have AFI's 100 greatest films. Birth of a Nation and Gone with the Wind are on, I forgot what number they are. But those films are personal to me. In third or fourth grade in Brooklyn, New York, we had a class trip. They had just reissued Birth of a Nation, so our teacher thought it was a good idea to take the whole class. Mixed school. With the black kids, we were not happy. We felt very uncomfortable during the screening, during the trip. And Butterfly McQueen, I don't know about burn no babies, and Hattie McDaniel, and our teacher did not spend the time to give us context to that. And years later, I understand, why Butterfly and Hattie McDaniel, they had to work. Her famous quote is, Hattie McDaniel's famous quote is, I'd rather play a maid than be a maid. She won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, but wasn't even allowed to come to the ceremony. Did you know that? She wasn't even allowed. And for Birth of a Nation, that film was shown my first semester in when you graduate film school. And again, we were taught that D.W. Griffith was considered the father of cinema, and all these innovations he came up, which is not a lie, but there was no social, political context about the film. It was just really all the talk about the technical side of filmmaking. We were not taught that this film, at the time it came out, the Klan was dormant. It was dead. And this film led to the rebirth of the Klan, which led directly to black people being murdered, castrated, lynched, whatever you want to call it. That was left out. That was completely left out. And something I did not think about. A.O. Scott, New York Times critic, wrote a very good review of BlacKkKlansman. I thank him. And he pointed out something I forgot. One of the things that D.W. Griffin came up with was cross-cutting.
Simultaneous action, yeah.
And one of the best scenes in the film was we cross-cut between my man, the great freedom fighter, Harry Belafonte. Give it up for Harry. And what he's that's a true story. That's the lynching of Jesse Washington, which took place in Waco, Texas. So we intercut between that, his character speaking before the black students there, and then the initiation. So thank you, DW, for I forgot about he came up with that.
Am I supposed to say something now?
No.
You know, I teach that movie in my class too, and it's the first movie I show at the beginning of the semester, and I describe it as a sci-fi movie, Birth of a Nation, because I always feel sci-fi movies, to really work, have to speak to the fears of a public at the time. And so what he tapped into, from my perspective, is he tapped into the latency, the racism at the time, racism of certain people being feared. He portrayed black people as running Congress and all the different things and raping the white women and subjugating the South, and he recreated Reconstruction. He redid Reconstruction And what's interesting about that picture, for those of you who haven't seen it, you should see Birth of a Nation. It sets up American cinema for the next 100 years. It sets up the Western. I mean, you know, the Klan rides in like the cowboys, and they save the day. And you know, we know most of the early Westerns, you know, how they depicted the American Indians. So, and it's really brilliant that you were able to use it in this picture in such a way that film, because that film, that there are certain groups that actually do watch that film still, you know, and they lionize
the Klan.
The Klan, they lionize that film. I mean, they're the heroes of that film.
Well, I've never been an individual that says that stuff should not be shown. But
Exactly.
I think that we have to give some context, you know. I think these people said that a Huckleberry Finn is not being in a library is crazy. That's one of the greatest American novels ever. And just because the N-word, you know, there was beef about To Kill a Mockingbird. But you have to give it some context. My first film I did at NYU was called The Answer. It was a short black and white film about a young African-American writer-director who's hired by a big studio to do a remake of Birth of a Nation. And like the character of Pierre Delacroix in Bamboozled, he's very naive and thinks that he can
Make it better.
I mean, not make it better. I mean,
we'll
just tell his own
version of it.
His own version of it. Yeah. So this thing called cinema is very powerful, and I've always, even if I want to be a filmmaker, I knew the effect it could have just by. And then when Superfly came out, everybody wanted to look like Ron O'Neal and be a pimp and coke dealer, or when Bruce Lee was in his heyday and we'd go see Five Things of Death or one of his films on 42nd Street, and everybody would come out of the theater and 5,000 kids and run up and down throwing kicks and knocking themselves out with nunchuck because they didn't even know how to use it. I've been always aware of the power of culture. And it's always been my belief that the reason why the United States has been able to be the world power it has been is not because we have more nuclear arms than else, but it's because of culture, the expert of culture. And depending upon how it's used, it could be detrimental.
That was director Spike Lee speaking about his film BlacKkKlansman with moderator John Singleton. In the next clip, director Patty Jenkins talks all things Wonder Woman with fellow director Richard Donner. The film tells the story of the Princess of the Amazons, who chooses to leave her idyllic home in an attempt to stop the war to end all wars.
You treated Wonder Woman. Nowadays, they make these superhero films, and they're so dark and depressing, and there's no truth, justice in the American way. I mean, you come out and you're down. This picture is so up and so terrific, and you found a great upside. Where did that come from? Where that was just great, really.
Thank you.
They all are going to copy you now, I'll tell you that.
I think I just I support many different superhero movies and versions of them. However, I felt like I was missing Superman 1. I was missing I was missing what made me relate to that as a child in that exact way. And so I came in and said, I want to, ironically, by being kicking back to older stuff, you're almost being modern in that I was saying, I want to make the grand classic film out of Wonder Woman. And that will be that will be what's modern, is that I don't see anybody else doing that. And I just believe in that. I believe that's first of all, Superman and Wonder Woman are very clean characters. That's the right thing to do for them. They deserve big beautiful, clean stories, particularly at their origin story. And so, yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do. And I love
turn
it.
the writers around, because it's just, you come out feeling so good.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Thank you. The idea that the origin of the story is basically original and done beautifully, but it eats up so much time when you try to introduce something like that. How and where did that come from that you guys kept it so alive? You were on edge. You were really committed and on your edge, waiting to find out what happens.
I love that question. And it's a funny thing about modern filmmaking is that there are a couple misconceptions which I'm endlessly fascinated by. One is you got to jump into the action. And I was like, well, we've been telling stories for 2,000 plus years. And that's never been a mainstay of drama. Not ever. Not ever did you start Hamlet with the battle. Never, never. You tell a story and you work your way in for thousands of years. There's ways to break all of those things. And then also tell them what the movie's going to be right away. What? That's also not a mainstay of thousands of years of storytelling, right? And so what's a mainstay of thousands of years of storytelling is universal character storytelling. It's where you say, you show me a planet and you show me two parents in crisis with a baby, and they hold that baby and they say, we have to send our own baby away, and what is going to happen to them? And you send them away. I'm in for the 45 minutes it takes to get to Superman as an adult. I am in, And so for me, I don't feel it wasn't difficult at all. I feel actually that it's a totally right that whatever your story is, whether it's an origin story or whether it's whatever, you have to get the audience to connect with your character and fall in love with that character and fall in stride with that character. And then you get into the story. Otherwise, you have a great first act, and then it falls apart in Act 2 and Act 3 because you just blew everything on action, and now fatigue, And so that's why I loved getting to tell the story that way. Loved it. Any nervousness that we ever reached about it, I would always unfortunately call your movie up and say, let's look at Superman. Superman, 56 minutes in before the helicopter rescue, and the first time you see him in the Superman, 56 minutes in, or maybe a little longer. And boy, does it make it good. Boy, is the reason that you cry when he
57.
pulls... when he pulls that thing off and flies up and saves the helicopter, you're crying with joy because you're so invested in the story already. If that happened right away, it would be a totally different thing. And so I just believe in it, and I believe in that it's so much more simple than modern Hollywood is making a lot of great films, but it's more simple than we think it is. It's like invest in character, tell a great story, and then everything else is on top of it if you care about those characters.
The original comic book was not World War I.
Yeah.
What brought you around to World War I? Or was it
you know what's cool about
Nazi fatigue?
A little bit. That decision was already being discussed before I came on board. They were not that far into the script that they had already said, let's do it in World War I. And at first, when I thought World War I, I wasn't sure. But then I came to be its biggest fan and proponent because of exactly that. First of all, we've seen, because so many of these superheroes were born in the 40s, we have seen World War II as the birthplace of these superheroes so many times. And done in a very similar way. And I even think the fact that the historic events makes it very difficult because you either completely tune them out and make up a fantasy version, but I wanted this movie to be slightly more reality based. So therefore now, are we going to end up going to the camps, or like how do you end up dealing with that? The thing that I loved so much about World War I was that it's the beginning of like the modern world as we know it. So many of the decisions that we are living in now were being decided upon right then and there, of like whether mechanized war, all of these people crossing each other's borders, so many different people fighting, and it was incredibly vague who was in the right and who was in the wrong. So I felt like I liked the idea of using the Germans. Oh, sure, it's the Germans. Like that's what everybody thinks when you think of any war in Europe. You think of World War II. But the truth is, it really wasn't the Germans. They're trying to sign the armistice. It was definitely Ludendorff was throwing a wrench in things, and that's all based on real history. But I loved that it gave Diana a way to see mankind and walk through mankind, which really represents our life here and now. But it's not a war that we have to get bogged down in the details of. And in fact, it symbolizes mankind at war even more so than World War II did.
Yeah, it was really one-on-one.
Yeah.
Okay, the fight sequences.
Yeah.
Really done brilliantly. Fantastic.
Thank you.
How was that tough?
I mean, it's funny. It's complicated and time consuming and all of those things, but it's not any tougher to me than anything. Directing, I feel, has always been I feel like every kind of directing I've done, be it making Monster in 21 days and trying to get that much, dude, shoot 9 pages a day with that kind of performance, or, doing The Killing pilot and trying to get a car to the bottom of a lake and pulled out and all these things. And to, another pilot, I shut down the Chicago River. It's like, it's always a totally new. Arrested Development, I built a hydraulic house that collapsed on Buster. It's like, it's always a total nightmare, You're always like, okay, so how are we going to do it? I didn't find the action to be that much different. I approached it exactly the same way I would anything else. Like, what's the point of view and what do I want to feel in this period of time? I had amazing people that I was working with who were excellent at what they do to, work out the great stunts and work out awesome, solutions to what all of our objectives were. And so I didn't find it to be any different, but it's definitely like the opening battle sequence on the beach was like a ridiculous, weeks and months. It was like going to war, like the planning of sitting, like trying to strategically plan how you're going to go and tackle something was a formidably complicated task.
You did it well. Really well.
Thank you.
Edge of your seat. I just got the 1 minute mark. So for that minute, I want to give you this. This is a baton.
Oh my God.
It's time to be passed on to new champ, kid.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm so, I can't believe it.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
This is I don't even know how to put this into words. You're the reason I'm here today. You're the reason I'm here today.
So are you the reason I'm here. So we got it made, kid. Love you. Love you.
That was director Patty Jenkins speaking about her film Wonder Woman with moderator Richard Donner. Up next is director Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, which sees a retired World War II veteran and former mob hitman reflect on the 1975 disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa and other moments that defined his career as a figure in organized crime. Scorsese discussed filming his DGA Award-nominated film with director Spike Lee.
Knew it was coming.
Yeah.
The aging process. It's never been done before.
No, not like this. Not like this.
Not like this.
I mean, I can't really tell you how they did it. ILM, Pablo Hellman, I mean, they're amazing. All I know is that by the time we got our schedules together and by the time somebody gave us the money to make the picture because we couldn't get the money, and this was before the CGI, you couldn't get this picture made in Hollywood. Didn't matter who was in it. Bob and me, they weren't interested in this kind of picture. And so Netflix stepped up at the point in which we knew then we needed CGI. Having waited, we waited almost 9 years, because we were doing other projects and things and other family issues. And so what happened was that then there was no way Bob and Al could play younger. No, we had a chance back in 2008. Seriously, you could do with makeup, you could do something. I could shoot a certain way, something. But this was this was out of the question, and so we really, out of desperation, asked.
Did it slow the shooting down?
And not really. I mean, there's a lot more crew because the camera has 3 lenses, and I was shooting a lot with 2 cameras. That's 6 lenses, sometimes 3 cameras for the improvs and stuff. So that's 9 lenses. That means more people on focus. That means no way I could get near the actors. I couldn't have just a scrum of people, But in any event, I was shooting in Taiwan, opening sequence of Silence, and Pablo came to me and said, we could do this on CGI, because Irwin and me and Jane and Emma, we were all talking about possibly CGI. No, I don't know. They have to wear helmets and stuff. I don't. And so I told Pablo, said, think about this, because I think we can do it. Each day it's getting better. And this was 2015, I think. And I said, don't tell me. I said, you can't put tennis balls on their faces. These guys are not going to go.
They're not going for that.
It's not going for that. So that's it. I said, when you have something that you really think I can look at, come back. And he did. About 2 months later, he said, I think I figured a way for the markers. The markers, we couldn't even see them. And then we came back, and Bob did a test. We reshot a scene from Goodfellas. And they put him in some sort of a cabinet with lights, and he was doing all kinds of facial expressions. Between those facial expressions that they mapped out, or what they for markers or whatever, plus pictures of him from the 70s that I chose, plus scenes from him in films of the 70s and that sort of thing, they created a test. And it was quite amazing when we played both scenes together, the original and the test. And we said, let's go with it. Of course, then the price for it was, the fee was, pretty big. And so that's when we really tried to get the financing for the picture, and that was the final blow, and that's when Netflix came in. Netflix came in, said they'd pay it, do it, and no interference. Amazing.
But can we just talk about one other thing? Because the face is a face, but the body and the stature in the years is different. So you had to talk back about that too.
Yeah,
right?
we had to. That was the thing that, and also the picture cuts back and forth for over 50 years. So you got it's an interesting thing. The shoulders, the shoes, movement, posture. Gary, this guy Gary was the posture stuntman, and he would take the guys and work them out, do exercises with them. With Al, the first day we were shooting with Al, he was in this chair and he's saying, "Look at those damn Kennedys." It was on the TV, and he gets up and he says, "I'm going to go to war with those people," whatever. And I thought it was great. He had 2 cameras on him. I thought we had all the markers, couldn't even see them, and I said, "Terrific, Al." It's the first time I'd ever worked with Al Pacino. I mean, but I liked what he did. I said, "Fine." So, okay, let's do one more take from over here. And we did another take, and he gets out of the chair again. And then Rodrigo comes up to me, my DP, and Pablo Hellman, CGI, came up and they said, "He's supposed to be 49. I said, "What do you mean?" "He's getting up. He's supposed to be 49. Doesn't look like 49. So I said, "You tell him."
It's the first day. First day.
Thank you.
First day.
You understand?
First day.
Give me a break, okay? So they said, "No, you have to tell him." I said, "He seemed nice out," so I went up to him.
I've been in your shoes.
No, the guy's acting. He's trying to find character. Now you got to watch how you get up. So I said, "All right." I said, "Al," he said, "How's it going?" I was okay. I said, yeah. I said, "The only thing is, what? You have to be 49. He goes, "Oh, God. Oh, God." So we do one more take, and he gets up, and "Okay, what did you think?" And Al says, 62. I said, "We can do it better." Okay, so we went by 5 takes, and that's the way it went, But, I mean, they had to, the posture and movement. Bob coming down the stairs, and Bob was telling a story earlier about coming down the stairs, and he was coming down the stairs like an older person. So Gary said, you have to skip and hop. You have to be happy with those stairs, And he said, "Okay," and he got it. But then he looked at me about an hour ago. He said, "Then you cut it out." I said, "Sorry."
But Joe Pesci's amazing.
Yeah. You got to ask him more than once to do anything. He doesn't want to bother. He's an older person now. We're all older. What's in it for him? What?
What did he do for the many years he retired?
He plays golf. Imagine, a guy comes from Jersey, I think that's what it is. Yeah. No, but he plays golf. I don't know what he do, a Snickers commercial? I heard, yeah. I don't know what the hell's going on, but he No, we talked about it because, no, the gangster thing again, this and that. I said, no, this is different. You'll see it's different. And no, then Bob, if I don't want to talk to Bob because Bob's going to say, you got to do it. That's his, explanation.
Is that his big brother?
Yeah, kind of. I don't want to talk to him. I said, he's just going to talk to you for a few minutes. No. And finally, it all came around, and especially when Netflix kicked in, because I think that made it very real, particularly because of this experiment with the CGI. And don't forget, the CGI on set is one thing, but Thelma and I and Pablo, over 6 months, looking at each shot. I mean, 2-3 times a week for us here. Them in San Francisco, we were on these systems, Skyping and everything with the projector here. And the interesting thing about the CGI is that there's a scene where Bob says, I'm bombing out a laundry service, and Harvey is just looking at him, and Joe is looking at him, and he knows he knows it's bad. He knows it's bad. So he has to watch how he looks at these guys, And so what happened is that one part of the scene, he says, I'll give the money back, and he says he's not going to need it. And so Bob, I think this is the area where it happens. Bob looks over at Joe, then he looks back at Harvey. And the take I chose, the older Bob, had a very nice vulnerability in his eyes and his face, right? We made him younger, and it became a threat. I said, he would never look like that now. Jesus, what makes him vulnerable as a younger person? Is it this here? Is it this? Is that? So they go in. No, I think it's the eye. No, wait, over here. No, yeah, because he turned his face and the light hit him this way. Now it all changes. Everything changes here. More texture here. But wait, if we put more texture, what have we taken? I mean, so you're combining the actual performance plus 2D plus what he did in tests.
But you still kept the same take, though?
Yeah. It's a different take, obviously, because you're playing with it. You follow? We just got to think ahead now. This is where it's going to be.
That was director Martin Scorsese speaking about his film The Irishman with moderator Spike Lee. Our next film, The Shape of Water, tells the story of a mute janitor at a high-security Cold War-era government laboratory who forms a bond with an intelligent aquatic being in captivity. Listen on to director Guillermo del Toro's conversation about his DGA award-winning film with fellow director Baz Luhrmann.
Well, the way I color code the movies very carefully, and shape and texture color code them very carefully, because, as I said, when we discuss painting, we don't discuss the actual visual language if we're not deeply into it, and when we discuss film, we don't do it, and we should. I think what I did is very simply her apartment is coated in blues and cyans to keep her underwater. Like, she always lived underwater. I opened the movie showing you that she dreams of water, she cooks her food on water, she masturbates in water, shines her shoes and goes to work. But basically I tell you the calendar that she rips, the line behind it talks about water. Time is but a river flowing from her past. Because another theme in the movie for me is time. We could discuss it separately. Then I color code the apartments for every other character in air colors. Oranges, ambers, perpetually in sunlight, even if it's dark. Giles' apartment across the corridor is always daylight, even kind of at night. I got tungsten for that in the light. And her apartment is not. It's cold and feels underwatery. Then I take red, and I use red only for film, love, and blood. That's the only reds in the movie. You can watch it as many times as you want, and if there's a red, it's life, love, life or blood, love, and cinema. The door to the cinema is red. The door that exits to the world is red. The seats in the cinema are red. I open with him bleeding on the left side, and she rescues him, and she bleeds from the right side, blood, and he rescues her. So there's a symmetry. In the green, and I say it very explicitly in the movie, green is the future. So the pies, the Jell-O, the car, the lab, the entirety of the lab, all that is green. That's the future. and you have a country obsessed with the future with a creature from the most ancient past. Thus, that becomes invisible. So, that color coding is important because then it's telling you the way we decorate the apartments and what we use. It tells you who the characters are, because as you very, very beautifully know, when people say great cinematography, they're saying great cinematography, great production design, great wardrobe design, great directing. I mean, it's a single discipline. Makeup, hair. It's a single piece of decision making, and you're telling the story. The same wardrobe, one button down, two buttons down, one shirt unrolled, is entirely different musically. And I always felt this movie, I wanted the movie to be like a song. That you came out, sometimes you want to do a symphony, sometimes I said, this has to be like a song. And I wish the audience comes out humming the movie. Emotionally, like you are in a car in the freeway and a great song comes and you pump it and it's a great moment when you're singing and the car is moving. That's what I wanted the movie to be like, because I think that's what we need from cinema right now. I do.
Well, Guillermo, I know the guys I went with, they were humming the movie the next day and the next day. So, the tune has carried on. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, it's many reasons. The first one, obviously, is at age 6, on a Sunday after church, I saw Creature from the Black Lagoon. And at the moment he swims under Julie Adams, I thought I was overwhelmed like Stendhal by the purity of art. I was like, I don't know what this is, but it fulfills my life. And I was overtaken. And at age 6, I didn't know the stories didn't end well. I thought, I'm sure they're going to end up together. And they didn't. That's part one. Part two, in studying fairy tales, there is a small strand of fairy tales that is referred to as a magical fish. And it's mostly, you can find it in almost every folklore. And it refers to a fisherman that gets a fish that says, if you let me go, I will concede you 3 wishes. And either it completely deconstructs or reconstructs the fisherman's life, depending on the fairy tale version. Third part, I'm a lapsed Catholic, but I'm a Catholic. And I love the fish as a symbol, but also the humble Messiah. The idea of the Messiah that comes in rags to be tortured and put through pain and then reveals at the end as a true Messiah, which is incredibly moving. And it's very close to fairy tales in a strange way. And it exists in fairy tales in many guises. Those are the reasons partially, but a reason that is purely instinctive is that water for me is life in a way that I cannot articulate. It's pre-verbal for me. Most people dream they can fly. All of my life I have dreamt I can live and breathe underwater. I think water is life, and the reason I chose the title is not just because the creature embodies the shape of water, but because the Tao in one of the I think in the 70s in one of the in the Tao discerning what we are, they say something like, is the nature of life to be flexible, malleable, and is the nature of death to be rigid. And Bruce Lee beautifully rephrased that by saying the most powerful element in the world is water. It can go anywhere, it can break through any barrier because it's nothing, because it takes the shape it needs to take and it becomes what it needs to become to break through. And I thought, that's love. That is exactly what love is. And I think that at this age, in my 50s, I find that we live in an incredibly ironic world, and we are afraid to talk about emotion. Really afraid. Actually, we feel vulnerable when we have emotion. We are afraid of sounding silly. And I think an artist, if you take yourself not seriously at heart as a storyteller, you go to the storytelling that you think is needed not wanted, needed, and right now I think we need emotion, So this creature, I can communicate to you its godly nature by the grace of this embodiment, by the grace of this, because the Beauty and the Beast normal fable, which is so attractive but so dangerous, is about someone that is perfect meeting somebody that is imperfect, and through a Stockholm Syndrome miracle is in prison and she falls in love with the captor. And the captor then transforms into the most boring fucking prince in the world. And then they can be together. And to me, love is not about transformation, but about understanding and acceptance. That we are all screwed. We're all screwed, so can we be screwed together? And this creature, the grace, the beauty, the final moment when it reveals, and he can take her to water. No other form could do that. I'm going to take you to water that will embrace us both, and we'll live there.
Wow. Wow.
That was director Guillermo del Toro speaking about his film, The Shape of Water, with moderator Boz Luhrmann. In our final clip, we're revisiting our very first episode of The Director's Cut, which featured Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese discussing Spielberg's film, Bridge of Spies, about an honorable attorney who is thrust headlong into the world of Cold War-era espionage. Please enjoy this blast from the past.
This is a spy movie, but it's not a spy movie. It's about spycraft, but it's more about the art of conversation. It's about wordcraft, really.
Yes, yeah.
And how things can be settled, in a very, very civilized way. Mm-hmm. If you've got an ethical, principled man who's determined to do something, you're determined even to. When you take ethics and ambition, you combine them. That's who James Donovan was. Ethics, ambition, and he wants 2 for 1. Everything's 2 for 1.
Yeah.
So I think what we did was I wanted the New York portion of the movie to be very much like, with more colors, just to feel more alive, more like Look magazine, like Life magazine.
That's what I mean about the design of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rockwellian, not really exaggerating or pushing Rockwell too much, but just more colors. And then the second part of the movie, and I decided to fade out the American part. So it fades out and fades back in on Berlin, and then the entire color palette changes to what you'd expect to be, cold and dreary and blue and overcast and very oppressive. And the reason I wanted to do that was to try to get everybody to understand what it felt like in Donovan's shoes.
Yeah.
To go from that very warm, American safe, protected by all of the laws of the land, into a place that was like a frontier town of Eastern Berlin.
You feel it. I mean, you get it. Sure, from his law office, from his house, everything. And then, that's why later on when he shows up for the breakfast at the Hilton, it's glorious. The Hilton is glorious. Orange and purple and I don't know. No, orange and blue, right? Orange and turquoise.
It was orange and blue.
It was wonderful.
And I so enjoyed working with Tom and Mark Rylance and Tom Hanks in all those scenes together that I had to put on the brakes because I wanted Matt Sharman and Joel and Ethan Cohen, who wrote all the subsequent drafts and took it very, very deep. I wanted more scenes between them. But then I realized if I had more scenes between them, when they finally get to the bridge, after a great absence in 2 shots,
right?
It wouldn't have the impact that it has when you haven't seen the characters on screen for a long time.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about working with the Coens, Joel and Ethan, who I might remind everyone is from NYU. But you brought them in, and for me, it's like when the first scene with Tom and the other guy, and he's talking about, that's not my guy.
That's Joel and Ethan.
It's very much that, and it really is wonderful how that carries through.
That's when Tom committed to the movie. He said he wanted to call me after page 6, but he didn't, because the movie originally opened with that scene, and then I actually took that scene, which was the first thing I shot with Tom, and I moved it because I had an afterthought that we should start the film with. I wanted to start the movie with a reflection because I think spycraft is about what's true and what's false? Is the reflection of the mirror of Rudolph Abel, is that the truth of Abel, or is Abel's painting, his understanding of what he looks like as a portrait artist doing a self-portrait, is that the truth? And so I just came up with this mirror shot to open the picture. And when I shot that, I thought we should actually open the picture with that and following and the apprehension of Abel, and then go to the Donovan character in that first scene. And that was the first scene. After page 5, Tom Hanks read the scene and he said, I know who this guy is. I know how to play him.
Yeah. No, but you see, that's what's interesting, fascinating for me, watching your work over the years, is it's the difference between visual and literature. You went for the visual for the opening, the idea of the image, the reflection, you see, rather than a dialogue scene.
Oh yeah, if you
as
compare
good as the dialogue scene is.
Look, you compare me with literate and cinema. I am illiterate.
No. I know what I mean is yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, but there's a tendency to say if the lines are great and the actors are great, well, that's the movie. Well, it's a certain kind of movie. It's not every movie, but if you can think visually. If you can interpret the theme of the picture visually, and even if it isn't directly obvious, that's one of the reasons I watched the picture a couple of times, because these images stay with you. Before these guys get out of the car and all that stuff, this guy's painting and doing, what is that?
Well, the image that comes to mind that I'll never forget is out of Raging Bull with the rope and the blood, just that macro close up of the just blood dripping from the rope.
Yeah.
He didn't have, that said everything. Sometimes, I came up with a shot on the day because I saw all these, not paparazzi, but they were in those days paparazzi before the name was known here. And they were taking all the pictures of Abel and Donovan and his wife and Alan Alda playing Waters. And I watched them popping their flash bulbs out to relight their flash bulbs, and they were hitting the ground. And I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
Seeing flash bulbs all over the ground. So I threw the camera on the ground.
It's great.
And just got one shot of their feet walking over the flash bulbs.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about directing, that you can have tremendous respect for the written word, and I do. And I've recently I've had tremendous collaborations with Matt Sharman and the Coen brothers and certainly Tony Kushner and Tom Stopper.
Yes,
the written word is everything. We can't do anything without something on paper. But where you insinuate the camera and where you can sneak the cinema in on a word-heavy film is a real challenge.
That's extraordinary. That is true. Like it's a dialogue scene sometimes that is really, as you say, word-heavy. It's the old story. It's only one position for the camera. Well, where the hell is it? But it is a matter, though, of natural visual thinking, and that's what makes this picture so viewable, so watchable.
If I didn't have strong performances, I would have shot everything in singles, because then I can make the performances better in the cutting room. But when you've got great actors, I don't need the close-ups. Because everybody here can be the film editor. You can just sit here and watch the movie and decide who to look at. So when I had Mark Rylance in that first scene with Tom Hanks, putting the camera, where to put the camera was easy. Just put it where you can watch them both at the same time.
You can see the two of them, No, but it's also true that cinema is also a person, a medium shot or a close-up of a person speaking, But again, it's the use of light behind them, the window. And that glowing light that you have there.
Well, that's Janusz Kaminski.
Extraordinary, I think. Younger people don't realize the mood of the time.
And I love the cop says to him, "I was third wave on Omaha Beach," and I said, "Tom, tell him you were in the first wave."
Yeah. And the other guys say, "Will you please go, please, officer?" Oh man! But they're shooting in the guy's house.
Yeah, that really happened. The movie's a true story. I didn't say a true story because we took license with some of the drama. Like, for instance, they shot Donovan's house, but Donovan had just moved from the house into an apartment. And I wanted to keep them in the house. It was much more American. It just felt more familiar to keep them in a home, not an apartment. And the second thing was they shot up the house, but only one bullet made it through the window. And of course, I put 5 through the window.
Well, you have to do a few more. Yeah, you have to do a few more, Steve. You got to do. But
you would have done a few more.
No, right? I would have done a few more. I would have done a little more. But I mean, I don't know what. Aside from saying that it's a wonderful film, and I'm honored to be here again with you doing this stuff.
It's the first time we've done this, by the way.
Oh, I think
This is our first Q&A.
Yeah. I know.
This is our
But we
very
could go
first
on
Q&A.
for a while.
That was director Steven Spielberg speaking about his film Bridge of Spies with moderator Martin Scorsese. We hope you enjoyed listening to these clips from past podcast episodes. And thank you again for celebrating our 500th episode and supporting us over these past 9 years of DGA Q&As. You can find links to our featured Q&As in the description for this episode, or you can check out our full catalog wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, please don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America